Hello and welcome to another TLDR US video. As I'm sure you've noticed, the world is in the middle of a global pandemic, and things have started moving pretty quickly. So today we're going to break down the last week of coronavirus responses in the US, and take a look at how President Trump has been handling the crisis, as well as what this means for politics moving forward. Before we do, you should know that all of our coronavirus content is being demonetized, which means we've lost a significant amount of revenue and our videos have been suppressed in the algorithm. If you want to help us with the money issue and support our team, there's links to our Patreon, stores and PayPal below. If you want to help our videos get seen by people even when the algorithm isn't picking them up, please share, like and comment on this video. Before we look at Trump's response to the outbreak, let's take a moment to explain exactly what's going on. As many of you will know, the coronavirus, or COVID-19, first emerged in Wuhan, China, in November of 2019. Since then, it's spread across the globe, with 125 countries confirming cases within their borders. The US is amongst the hardest hit, with health officials confirming approaching 4,000 cases across the nation. And by the time this video is released, that number will almost certainly be higher. So, what are American officials going to do to stop this? Well, at the beginning of last week, President Trump issued a travel ban for people coming from mainland Europe, with additional bans on UK and Irish travellers announced later. Furthermore, on Friday he officially declared a national emergency.
To unleash the full power of the federal government in this effort today, I am officially declaring a national emergency. Two very big words. The action I am taking will open up access to up to $50 billion of very important and a large amount of money for states and territories and localities in our shared fight against this disease. In furtherance of the order, I'm urging every state to set up emergency operation centers effective immediately.
As the president mentioned, this will free up large sums of money to be used in the fight against the virus. It will also give the Department for Health and Human Services extended power, including the ability to modify Medicaid and Medicare regulations. This declaration is slightly different from the one he used in February of 2019 to redirect Pentagon funding towards his border wall. This is because the coronavirus emergency declaration, unlike that of the border wall, includes an emergency declaration under the Stafford Act, which allows the government to direct money directly towards the disaster relief, as well as increasing medical action across the country. If the CDC and Department for Health and Human Services are able to effectively mobilise, this could mean a drastic increase in the presence of health officials, testing sites and temporary hospitals across the country. Along with declaring an emergency, Trump has been working with Congress in an attempt to pass legislation to aid Americans affected by the virus. Perhaps the most notable bill from Washington came in the form of the Bipartisan Emergency Relief Act, known as the Families First Coronavirus Response Act. The act was passed by the House in the early hours of Saturday morning, and is expected to pass through the Senate early this week, as Trump's tweet of approval on Friday gave Republicans the go-ahead to vote for the bill. The bill includes a number of features meant to decrease the strain on individuals as well as businesses. This includes, among other things, paid sick and emergency leave, increased unemployment insurance, and expanded food security programs. These are all measures meant to help people who may be unable to work due to the virus, and should help cushion the economic backlash from the virus. The expanded sick leave in particular has been a prominent point of discourse in recent days, with many officials worried that the US's lack of guaranteed sick leave will mean large numbers of sick and infected people still going into work and spreading the virus. The other key aspect of the bill is the implementation of free coronavirus testing. Before this bill, the government did not guarantee testing, and the hospital bills of those seeking tests frequently exceeded $1,000. In fact, testing as a whole has been a major issue for the US as the epidemic has unfolded. Despite the World Health Organization creating a well-functioning test in late February, the US elected to create their own test. This by itself is not unusual, as governments often do their own research and develop their own tests when it comes to new diseases. What was unusual about Washington's response in this instance was the fact they still didn't use the WHO's tests even when their own tests struggled to function. While many other nations employed the WHO's test to great effect, the United States did not. This, along with a number of other factors, led to a problematic lack in testing as the epidemic unfolded across the country. This has made the virus very difficult to track and contain as it spreads through communities. This has, of course, led to quite a bit of panic. Perhaps the most visceral example of this panic came on Thursday, when the stock market faced its biggest losses since 1987. This came 2 days after similarly devastating losses on Tuesday sent businesses reeling. On Thursday, the markets went down by another 10%, a drop that erased 3 years of growth. However, the market made a dramatic rebound after Trump issued his emergency declaration on Friday, jumping by nearly 10%. This up and down has some economists worried, and rising fears of a recession aren't helping anything. The jump resulting from Trump's Friday declaration could be temporary, or they could be an indication of a stronger market. Essentially, only time will tell. That said, in an effort to decrease this uncertainty and help bolster the economy, the Federal Reserve announced Sunday that it will be cutting investment rates to zero by investing massively in bonds. This is done in an effort to give people more buying power and put more money into the economy. These kinds of strategies are commonly employed in times of economic crisis and should theoretically calm the markets. The hope is that enough action can be taken now to avoid a 2008-style recession or worse from taking hold. Again though, these are uncertain times, and economies are notoriously unpredictable, so what happens next is anyone's guess. Either way, it's clear that Trump's emergency declaration helped the economy, even if that aid ends up being temporary. But what about his other moves? The president has come under some heavy criticism for his handling of the crisis. Some of it fair, some of it less so. His travel ban, for example, has generally been perceived by experts as a sort of political placebo, with New York University epidemiologist Danielle Ompad stating that regardless of travel restrictions, the number of cases is going to increase, probably dramatically over the next week or two, and that a travel ban isn't the best use of resources at the moment. He also came under heavy fire for the fact that he previously closed down the Pandemic Response Office that was set up after the 2014 Ebola outbreak and was tasked with preventing future pandemics. This is action he's denied responsibility for. One response that most people can agree was good was his bipartisan efforts with House Speaker Nancy Pelosi to craft the aforementioned Coronavirus Response Act. Despite not getting the payroll cut he'd been angling for, he's expressed a desire to sign the bill as soon as possible. So, with the world seemingly upended, how will politics move forward? What does Trump's response here mean for his general election prospects? Though it's far too early to answer the second question, we're beginning to see how this is affecting politics. Republicans and Democrats alike have cancelled political events across the country, as governors advise people to avoid crowds over 100 people. This includes Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders, both of whom have cancelled major campaign events to avoid encouraging large gatherings. Even the debate between the two Democrats was altered. Whereas previously it was set to take place in a town hall-style debate in Phoenix, Arizona, it was quickly moved to a studio in Washington, D.C., as awareness of the virus rose. They also decided not to host a live audience. Along with this, both Louisiana and Georgia have delayed their primaries to early May and June, respectively. This reflects a general move in America towards a more cautious way of living. Schools are being closed, concerts are being cancelled, and people have been staying home more often. Unpleasant as this may be, it's probably for the better. The US is attempting to flatten the curve of the spread of virus graph, and by doing this, they may be able to avoid a major loss of life. So for now, it's probably best to avoid large gatherings, wash your hands often, and stay home. Even if you're not sick at the moment, staying home will help slow the spread of the virus, which is crucial for not overwhelming hospitals and protecting the vulnerable. This is a turbulent time for all of us. All we can do is our best to avoid spreading the disease and hope that the government and health services manage to get things under control. Life is going to be very different over the next few weeks and months, but we can weather this storm. And while you're quarantined at home, feel free to subscribe and hit the bell icon. We could be here for a while, and it's not like you got anything better to do.